And those radars did a lot of things. And I got in touch with Dr. Ted Fujita at the University of Chicago, the world famous
Fujita scale.
Yeah, the Fujita scale. There's an interesting aside for Fujita. He actually was a physicist in Tokyo. I don't know if it was Tokyo University or not. But the bomb, we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. And Fujita was asked to go to Hiroshima and examine the damage patterns. They wanted to know where the bomb had been exploded. It wasn't exploded at the ground. It was exploded up, I don't know, it was 100 meters, which would be 300 a couple
300 meters.
Yeah.
Air Force weapon.
Yeah. And of course, it was a devastating situation. But Fujita was there 2 weeks later, on site, with his graduate students. And he told them, don't touch anything. I remember Fujita talked to me about that. Don't touch anything. I didn't get to know Fujita because of that. I learned that much later. But at NCAR, when we had developed the Doppler radars, and also we developed the color displays that you see on every day on your weather programs, those were developed at NCAR. And we did that at the time, we were able to do that at the time because suddenly integrated circuits were developed and available cheaply. So it didn't cost much to do those things then. Otherwise it would have cost a fortune. And NCAR didn't have that kind of money. So in any event, those radars were really successful. We knew we could detect the winds in the atmosphere. And then Fujita discovered that these microbursts were responsible for many airplane crashes. Planes were crashing on taking off and landing, and the explanation that was normally given was pilot error. Well, Fujita started to look at one of them, the one Eastern Airlines crash in Kennedy Airport, New York City, and determined that it might have been the weather. And then, because he was an expert at looking at damage patterns, he remembered a situation up in northern Wisconsin where a big storm had come through, a lot of damage, all the trees were blown down in one direction. If you have a tornado, they're circular, they're all blown down in one direction. And to him, the word downburst occurred. And he started to do research on that and started to hypothesize that these downbursts existed and that they were related to summertime convection storms, thunderstorms. And I had a boss at that time, Cliff Marino. Did you ever know Cliff Marino?
I knew the name, I know that.
Yeah, well, he was the president of UCAR for a while and also the director of the Atmospheric Technology Division. So he was my boss at that time at NCAR. And he said, Bob, I want you to come to Chicago and talk to Ted. He loved Ted. He was a really good friend of Ted Fujita. I had met Fujita while I was in graduate school back there in Chicago. So he said, let's go to Chicago. I want you to talk to Ted. I went to Chicago and I said, Ted, I think Doppler radars can detect and warn of these microbursts. That began the research program. National Science Foundation funded it initially. We had an experiment in Chicago that proved that we could detect it. The next one was at Stapleton Airport, the old Stapleton Airport here in Denver. We set up 3 Doppler radars. With 3 Doppler radars, you can measure the exact direction and speed of the wind. And we learned that in 45 days, or I think it was 45 days, there were something like almost 100 microbursts that occurred over and around the airport within 15 kilometers of the airport in a 45-day period in the summertime. Well, that got everybody interested. But the FAA was still kind of slow because we had people at the National Severe Storms Lab, God bless them, Ed Kessler, who didn't believe that these existed. He said they're nothing but gust fronts. We actually had an Academy of Sciences study. I was on a panel for that. It was headed by another famous meteorologist, a radar meteorologist, Louis Batten. He was a contemporary of Dave Atlas. They were both in the Air Force Meteorology Department, same time, Second World War. And anyway, we argued with Kessler there, back and forth. Fujita was there, but Fujita was, well, he could be extremely firm. He wasn't good at defending himself in that kind of situation. But we defended him. And we came out on top. And so the FAA had to agree that and they were happy to have Kessler say what he had said. They had already funded gust front detection systems out there in Oklahoma and elsewhere. But they weren't working because the sensors were way too far apart for a microburst. A microburst is about the size of a typical jet runway. And that's why it was so threatening.